Six Nations 2019 has a winner. It is the Welsh who get it done with a Grand Slam. I usually separate these videos out, but I've been having a few issues with the internet today. I'm going to have to pop into work to upload this one. But I'm going to do it as a combined effort for this final round. I will start with the Italian and French game. Now, between Six Nations and Super Rugby, I didn't actually see this game in full. I have watched the highlights. I suppose it was kind of a matter of prioritizing some games. There was a lot riding on these games, less so on the first one. I mean, everything was riding on this one in the first instance, but it had potential flow-on effects. Nothing was ever going to be riding on this Italian clash against the French, apart from perhaps breaking their winless run in the Six Nations. And I suppose they took a decent dash at breaking this 21 game losing streak, and still managed to kind of not get it done in fashion that we are, I guess, expecting nowadays of Italian rugby teams, but at least the national team. The Italians got the scoring open with a penalty in the 5th and then the 11th minute to make it 6-0. Dupont got his try just on 15-16 minutes after Medard and Penaud combined for a little break. They kicked that, so it was the French in charge from then, 7 points to 6. And France kicked the penalty just before half-time to make it 10-6 at the break. So only the one try in the first half, and a fair bit of accurate goal kicking. Second half, Italy opened with a penalty in 42 to make it a 1-point ball game, but then Huget gets a try. Of course, that guy always gets a try. He always either gets a try or costs a try or a bit of both. The guy is always in the action somehow. Made it 17 points to 9 to France. Allen, who had been kicking well up until that point for Italy, shanked a penalty, something awful, so that was on 50. And Tipaldi finally got a try for Italy on about 55 minutes. And they missed the conversion. It was a nice little dummy from Tipaldi. He bit the guy at the side of the ruck off, like made him think he was going to pass, and he just snuck in that little gap, so kind of clever play. Again, it was still game on at that point, 14 points to 17. And Tummett kicked the drop goal, which you haven't seen many of, if any, in the Six Nations thus far. Made it 20 points to 14. Tipaldi went close again, but the TMO gave him a no on a potential try. Eventually, France get a yellow card under kind of continual pressure. And Italy look to make them pay. It's Zanon going in. They got men over. It's a try for all money. It's one of those ones where you think to yourself, even if it's not true, you think, I could probably score that. He was smiling ear to ear, knowing that he was going to go over and get the try. But Penaud came on and just tackled him and also aimed for the ball with a swinging arm under his chest and knocked it clean out, so the try was gone. I mean, they would have needed to kick the conversion anyway to get in front, and Allen had kind of gone off in the second half with his kicking, but man, that was the chance, and they absolutely blew it. And then right at the end, Penaud got a try with Ntamak winning a high ball and flicking a little offload out the back, made it 25 points to 14 at the end of the game. France win that yellow card 5-zip. So yeah, France end up finishing 4th in the Six Nations with 2 wins. Italy remained pointless at the end. Pointless? That's kind of a... I didn't mean to do that. They have no points, is what I'm trying to say. Not that having the Italians in the Six Nations is pointless, although some people would argue that as well. At the end of the game for this one, the stats, actually Italy had, from the numbers, which don't always tell the full story, the better of the game. 65% possession, 71% territory, 387 run meters, though to France's 392, so actually fewer run meters despite all that extra ball. Tackling, though, is, I guess, a big difference. The French were tackling at 84%, which is fairly defensively solid, or at least normal, whereas Italy were at 76%, which is getting into the lowish territory. And that's despite only having to make 80 tackles. Well, they made 80 tackles, the Italians. The French made 151, so almost double. Also, penalties conceded was 14 to France and only 5 to Italy. So there was definitely a chance there for the Italians to get it done. but they did not get it done. Who had money on the Italians to get the wooden spoon? Yeah, it was probably a pretty safe bet. But hopefully long term, those of us who I guess choose to be a glass half full person will say the Italians potentially long term look like they're getting better. Other people will say they've had a long time to get better and they're still not better. I don't know. I guess that's one to watch. Next, Wales against Ireland was the game you had to watch. I watched this one in full, of course. I could not watch this game. I was a bit disrupted. I was going to get up and watch it first thing, but my little one was vomiting, so I ended up having to take her to the doctor in the morning, and then they had the news on, so I was kind of spoiled to the result, which is really unfortunate given the tension of this game. But from watching the game, it seems like the result wasn't really in doubt for that much, because Wales scored a try early through Hadley Parks. It was Anscombe's nice little chip over. They had advantage, and they took full advantage of it. Made it 7-0, and then it was just Anscombe's boot driving things home. A penalty from 49 metres out, which is impressive for Anscombe, and he kicked it pretty easily. On 17 minutes, made it 10-0. Ireland turned down 3 at about 23 minutes, knowing that they needed to get into the game on the board, but their maul failed to get the desired result. Anscombe kicked another penalty 5 minutes before half-time. Made it 13-0, and then won right on half-time to make it 16-0 at the break, and Wales looking very good for that lead. Penalties conceded at half-time were actually 5 to Wales and 8 to Ireland, so Ireland getting on the wrong side of the ref, but that would switch around a little bit by the end of the game. Second half, Anscombe kicks another penalty, kind of 48 minutes, makes it 19-0, and this is again, it's just like chipping, and it's just getting further and further away from the Irish. Another one on 52 minutes made it 22-0. Another one on 70 minutes made it 25-0. Yeah. The Irish finally managed to break the donut, is what the commentary team called it. They finally managed to get on the board. It was a couple of minutes into kind of added time, and yeah, it took a fair bit of effort. It took a good bit of phases of build up for the Irish to actually get the try, but they did manage to get that try to at least walk away with their heads held a little bit higher than if they'd been kept to 0. It was Lama with the try, and it was converted. So yeah, it was a pretty good game if you're a Welsh fan, I suppose, because not everything went right, but a lot of stuff seemed to go kind of according to plan, and that defence just really managed to hold very nicely. When I say it didn't go according to plan, I'm talking about things like North had to go off early, but Dan Bigger came on much earlier than expected, and that didn't disrupt things at all. Him and Anscombe on the field at the same time managed to go along pretty well. Elwyn Jones at one point looked like he might have to go off because his leg looked pretty sore, but he managed to power through it. He is a proper soldier, and didn't need to get replaced, which is, I guess, not surprising given that he's a pretty tough customer. Tyke Byrne for Ireland had a pretty massive turnover early, but then it was harder for him to get in the game as things went on. Both sides were conceding a fair few penalties. I mentioned it was 5-8 at halftime. It ended up being 11-all. I know there were some fans not that happy with the ref's performance. I've been there, I know that feeling, but I don't know, the fact that it was 11-all, I suppose, means it kind of evened itself out. But yeah, he even reversed one of the penalties, I think, in Ireland's favour after Wales had initially awarded it, and then Gareth Davis dived on somebody on the ground, which was a bit silly, and then he reversed the penalty, which is kind of the stuff you want to see from the ref, just getting all that off the ball rubbish out of the teams. But yeah, it was just uncharacteristically poor from Ireland and pretty clinical from Wales at times. CJ Stander tapped the ball forward, he tapped it trying to take a quick penalty and just knocked it forward. They kicked the ball out on the full, did Ireland, from Murray once and Sexton once. Ireland kicked the ball dead from kickoff. It was just yeah, just really out of sorts. And I don't know, it's like that game where you absolutely have to lift and you have to play at your best, and they just weren't there. It was pretty bizarre viewing because you know those guys can do a lot better. Whereas some of the Welsh guys like Navidi was just kind of everywhere. He ended up making 21 tackles, which was pretty huge. Although Stockdale ended up being the number one meter gatherer of the game with 71. Meters run in this game were actually ridiculously low. Wales only had 118 run meters, which is often one guy in another game, let alone a whole team. For Ireland, it was 227, but that's kind of a false stat, and that it doesn't show you just how comfortable Wales were looking in this game. So, yeah, man, congrats to Wales on the Grand Slam. They needed to get the job done. They did it pretty convincingly. I'm not sure if this will wake people up to the threat of Wales as yet. Like, everyone in New Zealand talks about Ireland, but I think that's because, at least from a kind of selfish, I guess, point of view, Ireland beat us recently, so we kind of feel that's a threat. But Wales haven't beaten us for a long time. So, but I mean, they're number 2 in the world now, so if you haven't got Wales on your radar, I guess look out come World Cup time, because they're going to be a contender given that amount of depth and the way they are playing. It's a lot of games they've won in a row, and a Grand Slam to cap it off for Gatland, his last game in charge of Wales in a Six Nations competition. So, yeah, very impressive stuff. And moving on to the last one. And I kind of thought, like, at the start of this game, the commentators for England and Scotland were trying to say, well, the Six Nations has already been wrapped up by the Wales result, but there's still the Calcutta Cup to play for, and, you know, form going into a World Cup year is very important. And it was clearly kind of a sell job to say, you know, you should still be interested in this game, even though the competition's already been decided. But the game ended up being that good that, didn't really need any selling on it, because it really spoke for itself. Talk about a game of two halves, and oh my lord, how many tries were scored in this game. It was a lot. Noel got a try from a slick pass pretty early, and he cut back in on a good little run, made it 7-0. A few minutes later, Curry got his try from a maul pretty much 5 meters out, doubled the score, 14-0. Launchbury got a try after Kyle Sinclair had a little line break. He just pretty much ran straight. I think it was Maitland. 21-0. England kicked the penalty, 24-0. And then May got a try from a little quick tap, and Slade got a try assist with that one. 31-0 was the scoreline. 31-0 after, I think it was about as many minutes. So England scoring at a point a minute in that first half. And then, as if you haven't seen enough good tries already, McAnally gets a try from a charge down of a Farrell kick. And he runs pretty much half the field, maybe even a bit more, for a hooker, which is impressive. I know they talk about him having gas. It was a pretty extraordinary try. Made it 31-7 at halftime. And the commentators are just talking about how it's damage limitation. They don't want to get too much of a hiding. There's not much in it for them. Although I already knew the result because, like I said, at the doctor's office, they had the news going. So it was so strange to see some of their comments that it was like, you know, what a comeback it would be. But not really talking about it in any seriousness. Mostly talking about damage limitation. Second half, Graham got his first try. He is an elusive runner on the wing. They missed the conversion though, but it was 31-12 at that point. Price with a proper good try as well. He had a little chip over, regathered it and got it to Bradbury on the inside ball. 31-19. Graham got another try from a Russell long pass to Maitland, and Maitland fed it to him. 31-24. Laidlaw missed the conversion when he came on, and they did bring on like 5 subs at the same time, did the Scottish. Russell got an intercept not long after, so it was 31-31 at that point. And look at the timings of those tries, man. 47, 50, 57, and then 60. It was all pretty quick succession for the Scots to make that catch up. Then things kind of quietened down. We had a proper test match on our hands for a wee bit. Johnson got a crazy try on the 75th minute. Beat multiple defenders to get through there, and that looked like it was going to seal the game for Scotland, but they weren't able to hold out. They had about 2 minutes. With 2 minutes left on the clock, they had the ball and they kicked it away. I guess it's one is that too long to just go through the phases? They were in their own half, so maybe they just thought they could rely on their defence, but they gave away advantage. And eventually, Ford and a whole lot of phases with advantage, England managed to go over under the sticks and even it up with the conversion. So 38-38, what a crazy game. Proper entertainment. Like, if you wanted tries, that is the game to watch. It's a funny one because as I've been watching the Six Nations, I forgot to mention the stats of that Wales and Ireland game. Tackling 94% Wales, 91% Ireland, 94% Wales. That's high, right? Usually the Six Nations games are like high 80s or low 90s in terms of tackles completed. This game, have a guess what you think the tackle percentages were. If you watch Super Rugby, you'll be more familiar with these numbers because Scotland were at 77%, which isn't that bad. It's still not good, but England 70%, which is getting proper low. So, but that being said, they had 674 run meters, so England with the ball were just devastating. Scotland had 494, which is still pretty respectable. But yeah, 70% tackling is poor. Eddie and John Mitchell will not be happy with that, but they will be happy that they came back to at least deny Scotland the victory, even if it means they get to retain the Calcutta Cup, it being a draw, and Scotland having won it last year. So yeah, England with more possession, 58%, territory 68%. But yeah, just seemed to switch off a bit in that second half. Scotland added a bit of magic, and yeah, if nothing else, it was a proper entertaining game that would be a pretty memorable one if you're at Twickenham. Although one of the commentators, the Scottish guy, mentioned that here at Murrayfield, blah blah blah, at one point, that was during the Scottish comeback when they evened it up or when they went in front, because it probably sounded like Murrayfield with how the Scottish fans were celebrating, but. Yeah, I guess a draw at the end of the day. No one's happy, but Scotland will definitely take that for sure. It just was interesting from England. Like in the first half, they were just so clinical. Curry was everywhere. Everything was, for the most part, kind of paying off. In the second half, you see Billy Vunipola kind of knocking the ball on a couple of times. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect from Scotland in the second half either. Like Laidlaw, he missed the penalty, he missed the conversion, he threw a forward pass, so I suppose if either side had just added a little bit more, then they would have been able to pinch a win. But hey, a 38-38 draw to finish the Six Nations season for 2019 was certainly an entertaining way to get it done. I should mention that Daly, Noel, Slade and May all had 100 plus run meters in this game. 4 players. And for Scotland, Toulis led the tackling with 24, which is pretty phenomenal. So yeah, that's the Six Nations review done for this final week. It's been a pretty entertaining one for me. Apart from that game, I've watched all the Six Nations games in full this season, which is kind of a first for me. I usually just kind of follow it loosely, catch whatever game is on at the most appropriate hour over here in New Zealand, because it's often on at like 2, 3 in the morning. I usually catch whatever one's on at like 5 or 6, but I made a concerted effort this year and I've enjoyed it. It's different from what we see in Super Rugby. It's different from what we see in the Rugby Championship. But I mean, how good was it in that final week? You had still 3 teams that were in it. Imagine if Ireland had won that game and then this result is still on the cards. You just wouldn't have known who's going to win it. It could have been anybody's in that last game. But either way, congratulations again to Wales. A proper good way to sign off Warren Gatland's Six Nations career. They were kind of criticised from that opening result against France, but they just got the result done, man. They beat everybody, and they should be celebrating until the wee hours. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the games. I am sorry that I've kind of had to combine them up. The internet is doing funny things at my place today. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the tournament and on these results. I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.